The Titans are imitation Aeons. A long speculated theory has finally been confirmed in the 3.4 story. The Titans, their divine domain, and the Chrysos Heirs mirror the Aeons, Paths, and Pathstriders. This concept has been around for a while, as people started noticing similarities between the Demigods and Titans to the Paths and Aeons, especially when Phynon at the end of 3.1 joked that Maide should change the name of Strife to Preservation. Now, this may seem like a fairly small detail. If anything, just an interesting world-building aspect to Amphorius, and how the Emperor Scepter and Ligus expedited the evolution of their experiment. But what if I told you that this small detail may actually hint to some of the biggest players in the Star Rail universe, possible future characters, and what their abilities may be? So today we'll be going through each of the Titans' associated paths and what that reveals to us about the wider Star Rail universe. But before that, do you guys like trying new snacks? Personally, I've always been into trying new foods and new snacks whenever I can, and a big help to that recently has been the sponsor for today's video, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co.'s mission is to give you the experience of Japan from the comfort of your home. Tokyo Treat is an exclusive monthly snack box packed with Japan's tastiest and craziest treats. Each month you'll get a rare Kit Kat flavor, limited edition chips, noodles, and the latest treats from Japan straight to you. As always, we gotta taste the Kit Kat first. Now chocolate and orange is a classic combination. Ooh, oh, you can really smell the orange in there. That's really nice. Oh, wow, this is really, really good. This might be a go-to favorite of mine. This is a roasted soy sauce flavored corn snack. I personally really like corn chips. Any type of like roasted corn flavors I'm really into, so. Oh, yes. Oh, that smells like that deep roasty corn. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This one right here is it. Sakura Co. is a monthly Japanese snack box that supports your local makers across Japan because, you know, support them small businesses, y'all. Each box is carefully curated with traditional and seasonal snacks like mochi, dorayaki, manju, and much more, including signature Japanese teas and exclusive homeware items, delivering an authentic taste of Japan to your home. This, I'm actually really excited for, Okinawan sweet potato pie, and I love Okinawan sweet potato. Look at that cross section right here. That right there. That purple piece. That's sweet potato. I've never had this before, but there's something about this flavor that is super nostalgic to me. This is so good. Now it's time to try the Okinawa Sanpin tea. There's a lot more very classic tea flavors. In a way, it's kind of reminiscent of like a bit of like Chinese black tea. For me, at least. And that's nice for me because that's kind of what I grew up on. Each box comes with a booklet that explains every snack in these boxes, as well as allergy information, because that's important, and gives fun facts about Japanese culture. Look, even before partnering with Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co., I have bought these boxes as gifts, and people absolutely love them. So if you or someone you care for want to try these amazing Japanese snacks from the comfort of home, click the link below and use code JORJOR at checkout to get $5 off of your Tokyo Treat or Sakura Co. box. Thanks again to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for sponsoring this video. Now back to the theory. Before we start going over each of the Titans, let's start by going over why the Titans represent the paths. The data logs given at the end of the 3.4 story reveal that during the 7,091,231st cycle of the Amphorius experiment, the Scepter started emulating the concept of paths with the 12 factors. The factors were split into two entities. One was set up as the Titan, mirroring the concept of the Aeons, carrying the divine domain that emulates one of the paths. The other would be the Demigod, that would be the ideal candidate that follows the same path as the Titan, eventually taking their core flame. And finally, all other people that were not one of the factors but still follow in the path of the Titans and receive power were Chrysos Heirs, mirroring the concept of Pathstriders. This consistent cycle achieved evolution and iteration for the Amphorius experiment, thus helping Iron Tomb's rebirth. The constant cycles and evolutions of the Titans and Demigods pushed along the questioning of the prime mover of life. Now, this experiment and Ligus's intention from using the paths as a base model may actually point to the intention tradition of proving all routes lead to destruction. No matter which path one follows, no matter the strength and notoriety of said paths, at the end we all meet destruction. Now let's start going over each of the Titans and what paths they were designed to emulate. There are a few that the data log does confirm. Cerces, the Reason Titan, was meant to emulate erudition, which is fairly easy to see, especially since Cerces and Anaxa had their main goal to try to reach the truth and the origins of the universe. It isn't necessarily wisdom or general knowledge, rather a goal from which the gathered knowledge and wisdom can be used for, to answer life's questions. This mirrors Noos's ambitions of calculating the essence of the universe and its ultimate solutions, and in many ways you can see how Cerces mirrors that concept. She constantly asks questions of Anaxa and everyone, seeking truth and opening eyes. It's said that those who meet with Noos only receive questions, and the answers must be found on their own. And to be honest, Cerces never really offered wisdom or knowledge to anyone, only gave these truth-seeking questions throughout the whole entire story. Even her trial was the question of the origins of life. Who are we? It was a question posed to Anaxa, and Anaxa was the one who solved it on his own, and near the end posed his own question for the next generation that he expected to come. The next confirmed one was Zagreus, the Trickery Titan, emulating elation. And it definitely fits. I think most people thought trickery aligned with elation. But this interpretation actually brings up a couple very interesting points about elation. I think for the most part, elation was considered the path that seeks entertainment. It's noted that those who follow elation often seek adversities in their wild games, and always search for the kind of laughter that will uplift the soul towards divinity. And this part is somewhat reflected in Zagreus, who exclaims that his life goal is to create the greatest trick, something that can only happen in a 1 in 100 millions of chance. But Cypher is interesting. She has a slightly different goal. Her ultimate wish? Simply to live a free life. This in itself is a very interesting take on the concept of elation. It's not really about seeking entertainment, it's about seeking and expressing freedom. And this concept may be the other side of elation, or even its true meaning. Similar to how Aha also sees the mourning actors as a part of elation even though they renounce joy, because joy and sadness are two sides of the same coin, and maybe freedom is the coin itself. Oronyx, the Time Titan, was confirmed to be the emulation of the Remembrance. Obviously, she worships fully, calling them Sky Father, and you could even claim that she is a Pathstrider of Remembrance, which really isn't a crazy concept to think about, because if Phynon and Cyrene are simulated people made of data that receive the gaze of an Aeon, then so can the Titans. Especially since the Titans are emulating specific paths in Aeons, it would make sense that those Titans made to follow those paths would eventually become Pathstriders. But time as a reflection of Remembrance also works really well, as the powers of Oronyx only ever work in bringing back the past from memories. This is very literally the powers and beliefs that the Memo Keepers have, modeling and shaping memoria and only handling the past. And Cyrene, for her part, adds to the trope that all followers of the Remembrance share, that their characters are inspired by occupations that tell stories. Rekka is a movie director, the Trailblazer in Remembrance is a writer, March 7th is a photographer, and like Black Swan, Cyrene does divinations, like a fortune teller. Thanatos, the Death Titan, emulating the equilibrium. I think most people would have assumed that Death Titan would have meant nihility, as death in Star Rail was often related to the nihility. Acheron even guides lost souls to the nihility, and Casterus, being called the daughter of the river Styx, matches Acheron, whose name is a reference to the river Acheron, that is believed to lead to the river Styx in Greek mythology, and is a reference to Chiron, the ferryman. But they actually took a very different approach to death, which was one of the big points in 3.2, that Thanatos, the Death Titan, also applies to life, and they are really the Titan of life and death. That's why there's two Chrysos Heirs that bear the title of their demigod, and the balance aspect is that life only has meaning when there is death. This also applies a very interesting meaning to how the simulation applied these paths. It's less about the actual divine domain, but more akin to the properties of the Titans and demigods. Casterus and Polixia represent balance. When one of them tried to disturb the balance, the scales tilted, and there was no way to enter the netherworld. All the souls were left in the world of the living. This actually brings up a very interesting point about Ho-Oh, the equilibrium, that they might actually be the one managing life and death in Star Rail. For Georios, the Earth Titan, it was implied that he emulated the Permanents. At the very least, he became a Pathstrider of the Permanents based on the As I've Written chapter about him. Not much is known about Georios. What we do know is that he was considered one of the kindest Titans, gifting agriculture and the Earth itself to humankind. He made the Dromas and the Mountain Dwellers, often being teased by the other Titans for making his creations a little bit too big. And interestingly enough, like Long the Permanents, he was also a dragon. And also like Long, his body was split and he himself is considered the cornerstone of life to Amphorius. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I can't really think of any other path that would fit Georios. And all we know about Terrivox is that he was a mountain dweller that slayed Georios during the Chrysos War. Now with the confirmation that Georios witnessed permanence and is now connected with said path, it brings up a pretty obvious question. How will this play with Dan Heng, the descendant of the permanents? It's very easy to make the connection of Mnestia, the Titan of Romance, to Adrilla, the Beauty. There's an obvious connection between beauty and romance. I mean, the Titankins of Mnestia literally pursue the beauty of the world, but it actually goes a bit deeper than just that. A very key thing to know about Aglaia is that she is blind. While her golden threads make up for that, she isn't really able to see conventional beauty. She even stated that one of the most beautiful things in this world was a child's genuine gift. And this reflects Argenti's view of beauty. He doesn't really follow conventional beauty. For example, he calls Boothill beautiful for his passion, not really his looks. Even though Argenti and Aglaia are conventionally beautiful, they find beauty in the things others don't. It's also an interesting choice that Aglaia, as the demigod of romance, is the main defender of the city of Akama, which may be a reflection of the Knights of Beauty, people that follow beauty and excel in combat. Which tells me that beauty and romance isn't just about finding beauty or making one beautiful, but also about preserving the world's beauty. Adrilla's rise as the beauty never actually had anything to do with attractiveness, but rather witnessing the ultimate meaning of the universe and finding it beautiful. And Mnestia might have actually given us a hint to Adrilla's status. Currently, many consider Adrilla as a fallen Aeon, but there's a myth about Mnestia that might actually hint otherwise. Mnestia fell in love with Cerces and professed their love to them, but never got a response. In sadness, Mnestia passed away, crying tears of blood, and arose reborn from the golden cocoon as a humanoid figure. They set out on a journey around Amphorius with the blessing of their kin, finally returning from their journey with the love of family, friends, and true love gathered from the world. Mnestia then wove them into their golden chrysalis, along with their body and heart, and gifted it to Cerces. And in the arms of their lover, they were reborn as the chrysalis of gold. And ever since this moment, the golden butterfly and the tree have been inseparable. This myth may actually hint that Adrilla might have actually fallen in love with someone, possibly even another Aeon, and that Aeon couldn't reciprocate that love, or might not have responded. And so Adrilla fell and descended to travel the universe to walk a deeper path of beauty, and possibly romance. Hey, Future Jordan here. So I actually wrote and recorded this whole entire video way before 3.5 came out. I was originally planning to post this a couple weeks ago before I left for my trips, but I wasn't really able to make it in time, and 3.5 came out, and now I have to update my script. Some of the path alignments I actually got right and need to just update a little bit of the info, and some I got very, very wrong. So for the rest of this video, you may see clips from past me and me currently, since I had to rewrite and refilm based off the updated information in 3.5. Just letting you know in case you see anything that's a bit different. But now back to the theory. Next is Nikador, the Titan of Strife, emulates the Hunt. Now originally I and probably a lot of other people believed that Maide would be the Preservation, due to Finon joking that Maide should change the name of Strife to something like Preservation, when referring to him going to defend Amphorius from the Black Tide. And the fact that Maide's blood crystals also resemble Klapoth, but ends up he's actually supposed to emulate the Hunt, which is interesting. To the Hunt? What? Oh, god damn it. Okay, alright, I gotta rewrite my fucking video now. As you can see, I did not see that coming. Well, mostly because the Hunt, as per defined, is the endless pursuit of a target, due to vengeance or even justice. And Maide, we see after taking in the core flame, was more about protecting Amphorius. He even called himself the Bulwark of Amphorius, which literally means a defensive wall. Which is why I had him originally slated to be the Preservation, since Klapoth is the builder of the very celestial walls to protect the living universe. Now, that is not to say that there is nothing about him that resembles the Hunt. In all honesty, I would say his past prior to meeting him in game actually fits the Hunt pretty well. Invading Kremnos and avenging his mother by killing his father is very much matching the Hunt. But after that, he seemed a little bit lost about what he should do and where he should go, which might actually be a very interesting reflection of those that follow the hunt and do end up killing their targets. What happens to the Shenzhou and Lan if the day comes that they do kill Yaoshi, the Abundance? The Galaxy Rangers might be fine once they catch their targets because they seek to hunt for justice, so there will always be another target. But it still does beg the question, right? Based on the actual data logs given, it seems like a majority of the reasoning for the connection to the hunt is due to his conflict behavior and contradictions, which I guess is supposed to reflect the innate combative nature of the hunt. This kind of shows for my day that the emulation seems to be more reflective on his actual physical nature than what he actually is like or the decisions he ends up making. Next is Phagousa the Ocean Titan and Icylens emulating the Nihility. Now this one I found very surprising. After playing through the 3.5 story, it does make sense. In fact, I think it makes more sense than My Day actually aligning with the hunt. But the reason I am surprised is because it's the opposite reason for why My Day is aligned to the hunt. All of the physical aspects of Icylens and Phagousa honestly match more with the harmony. Shippei and their followers are famous for their music and bringing people together. And Phagousa is known for their banquets and brews, teaching humanity the first songs and dances. Icylens' siren songs are fairly similar in mental effects to the tuning that Robin and Sunday use. And Icylens and Phagousa's search for festivities and drunken ecstasy reflects Penacony as the planet of festivities and dreams, a planet that follows the harmony. But where the Nihility comes in is more reflective on her decisions and emotional state. After literally losing everything, including her own dreams given by Phagousa, all she really wanted was to search for meaning. Her feasts and banquets is more a representation of her wanting meaning in her life after losing everything. It was actually even shown at the end of 3.5. She doesn't know what she wants, what to search for, what to try to gain, and whenever she finds something that she thinks she wants, it doesn't actually give her any fulfillment. So with Saridra, even though it was stated that she was only a small light in the darkness, Icylens chased after it because it was the only thing that gave her meaning. It's a different take on these self-annihilators that unintentionally follow Nihility. Acheron's loss of herself was a lot more literal. Icylens was more emotional, a loss to meaning to life. To be a little open here, her story really resonated with me actually. Trying to find meaning to life is something I feel like a lot of people struggle with, myself included. Searching for something to identify as, grab onto, and chase after, just having dreams and goals, it really matters. And this story really confirms to me that the meaning to life is something that is individual, right? It should be something that you find within yourself. You have to go and find that meaning. Now that's enough of me being philosophical and stuff. Let's get back to the theory. Icylens' association with Nihility is also a reflection of the fact that no one intentionally follows Nihility. I mean, no one really wants there to be no meaning to their lives, right? And in general, this patch really opens up this concept of those who are pathstriders but don't really want to follow their path even outside of the Nihility. Now, when it comes to Talanton and Saridja's emulated path, it's the order, which makes sense since law and order are complementary concepts, one kind of flows into the other, right? Talanton was one of the oldest titans, making order from the chaos at the beginning of the world, established laws, rules, and gave out judgment, which sounds very similar to Enna, as they were also one of the oldest Aeons, observed the actions of mortals to ensure the order of the universe, while displaying intolerance to any form of chaos and strife, specifically establishing order after the Dusk Wars that consumed the world in darkness, which is known as the 7 Days Myth, the one that Sunday speaks about in his boss fight. On the first day, they ascended. On the second, they created the day and night cycles. On the third, they established language. On the fourth day, they created values and morals. On the fifth day, they established rules. On the sixth day, through the existence of the calendar, language, values, and rules, humanity established meaning. And on the seventh day, Enna was cast away and absorbed by Shippei, representing humanity finding dignity. It was also mentioned in the database that Saridja's actions were in pursuit of a single purpose and was highly affected by externalities, as Saridja's actions in 3.5 were all for the purpose of heading to the Sea of Stars. And in a way, everything she did involved others, and her motivations were based in affecting others as well. The reflection to the Order comes in the fact that their ascension is basically due to the chaos that existed. And in fixing that chaos, there was less of a need for strict order. I know that Hycillens is nihility, but like I said, a lot of her physical aspects are more aligned with harmony, and she is the one who killed Ceridra, which could reflect how the order fell to the harmony. Now, I did have order aligned with law in my original script, but I also had this crack theory on another possible path that Ceridra would have emulated. It's now 100% confirmed wrong, but I thought it'd still be fun to share a brief explanation of this crack theory because it has some interesting points. I had the idea that it was possible that Ceridra actually was emulating the Hunt. Again, it's not possible anymore because now it's confirmed to be my day, but my reasoning was that the Hunt has always been associated with justice, specifically in vengeance and balancing power. All Galaxy Rangers carry balance scales as a representation of them balancing the scales of justice for those who aren't able to. And balance scales are the symbol of Talanton. And at the time of me writing my original theory, there was no confirmation of Ceridra's motivations of her conquests. But I proposed that if the reasoning had anything to do with vengeance for her people or had a single target in mind, then it could be a reflection of the Xianzhou's endless pursuit of the abundance. And the final thing was the association of Ceridra with chess, being a possible reflection of the Xianzhou's general strategic method of battle and love for Chinese chess. That was basically it. I truly did think it would be the order. It makes a lot more sense, but I thought that the similarities to the Hunt and their factions was at least worth pointing out. The final confirmed Titan is Kephale, which is kind of implied to be destruction, as Kaslana and Kaus's names involve chaos. And at the end of the day, the world-bearing Titan will ultimately destroy the world and rebuild it anew from their memories. This actually may give us a very interesting look at Nanook, because the underlying reason of their ascension is that their world was ravaged by the Swarm disaster and the Machine Emperor's War. This caused them to basically believe that this world was a mistake and must be destroyed, and the aspect of rebuilding the world after its destruction may be the true reasoning behind Nanook. There's something to point out though, is that rebuilding the universe after its destruction, from memory specifically, is the key goal of Fuli, the Remembrance. And this might actually explain why there's not a Lord Ravager associated with the Remembrance, because Nanook might see Fuli as necessary for rebuilding the world after they destroy it. Now, I'm not 100% saying this is the reason, but it does give an interesting tie between the destruction and the Remembrance. Now, after this, there's really only two Titans left that haven't been confirmed yet, Janus and Aquila. Starting with Janus, I feel like a lot of people think that Janus is the Harmony, due to Trivio splitting into 1,000 versions of herself, like how Xipe seems to be made of puzzle pieces that are splitting apart. And to be fair, they did bring everyone together and was called the Three-Faced Messenger, and which reflects Xipe having three faces. But outside of the physical aspects, the similarities kind of end. See, I don't think Janus is Harmony. I believe they are finality. Janus, the Titan, is known for their prophecies. They know the existence and ends of all paths, opening doors and guiding humanity. And Terminus, the finality, is known for traveling backwards in time and bringing prophecies of the future. Their words are spoken in riddles and must be decoded, similar to the prophecies throughout all of Amphorius, given by Janus and Tribios. Janus's are meant to guide humanity, and Terminus's prophecies have saved millions of lives through their warnings being interpreted by their followers. The IPC even listened to Terminus's words. And just to add the cherry on top, Janus in Roman mythology is the god of beginnings and endings. They know the end of all things, like Terminus, the finality. Now, there's also a very interesting aspect of Janus that reflects the Trailblaze. They created roads and connected cities, like how Aquila connected planets and star systems. Janus's passages may even be an emulation of the Silver Rails, and it's kind of been hinted that the Trailblaze and Finality have this weird mirroring relationship, especially shown between the Stellaron Hunters and the Astral Express. There was even once a navigator for the Astral Express, Icy, that ended up becoming one of the founding members of the Omen Vanguard, a key faction of the Finality. So this may actually hint to a very interesting connection between the Trailblaze and the Finality, specifically Aquila and Terminus, one always moving forward and the other moving backwards, one seeking the unknown and the other warning of the known. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this next one was mostly based off the process of elimination, but there may still be some stuff to it. Aquila, the Sky Titan, emulates the abundance. Now, you're probably thinking, this is 100% because Hyacinth is a healer. And you're not wrong. But there's still a few points you can make from this. Aquila was known for their kindness of warming the earth and bringing down life-giving rain. And that aspect of giving and preserving life is reflected in Yaoshi's goal of the continual proliferation of life. It's a much less extreme version of it, but it still applies. Aquila is famed for their sun and rain, while Yaosha is designed after plants and wildlife, the things that grow from the sun and rain representing life. Of course, Hyacinth is a healer, and wishes to be a healing rainbow that cares for the world, which resonated more with Aquila, more than the battle-hardened warrior like Seliosi, bringing kindness back to the sky, which at its core is similar to Yaoshi, seeing pain and illness and wishing to protect life. Which yes, Yaoshi does kind of do in a twisted way. At its core, it is trying to preserve life. This covers all the Titans and their associated paths, and it does reveal a couple of interesting concepts behind the Aeons. But there is one major thing that is implied when considering the fact that each Titan was meant to emulate a specific Aeon, and that's the possibility that the Demigods are meant to emulate real Emanators. This could be incredibly important to the Star Rail universe, because if this is true, this would give us hints to the abilities of Emanators from every path. See, Chrysos Heirs being a general reflection of the Pathstriders makes sense. There are countless Pathstriders, but Emanators? Few and far between. Nanook only has 7 and Shipe only has 4. And it doesn't really seem like they can die from old age, or at the very least they have an extremely long lifespan, which means that there is a high possibility that there are detailed data entries of Emanators of every path, dead or alive. And that means that the Scepter could have utilized their data as a basis when creating the Demigods, making each of them simulated versions of real Emanators, and allows us, the player, to get a glimpse of past and present Emanators. For example, there could have been a blind Emanator of Beauty that led the Knights of Beauty, twins that together were an Emanator of Equilibrium handling souls, a thief that was an Emanator of Elation that could turn lies into reality, a musician that might have been associated with the Harmony that fell into Nihility but rose again as an Emanator of Nihility similar to Acheron. And we could even go deeper into the speculations with specific Emanators. Anaxa could have been an emulation of Xander 1 Kuwabara, the first Genius Society member, the one who created Nous, since Anaxagoras, the Greek philosopher that is the inspiration for Anaxa, was the one who created the concept of Nous, which Starro used as the inspiration for that Aeon. And the fact that Ligus is one of the segments of Xander 1 doesn't really change this possibility, as it's the Scepter that makes the emulations based on the data it has. Honestly, it might even work better, since Anaxa's dislike for the concept of gods and titans might actually come from Xander 1's disdain of Nous and the Aeons. Maide could have been an emulation of a previous general of the Xianzhou, or if you don't believe that the generals are Emanators, maybe it's emulating one of the Spiritists. It's definitely possible that one of them could be using crystals as a weapon, or it's even possible that there was an Emanator of the Hunt that was part of the Galaxy Rangers, possibly even La Mancha himself, the current leader of the Rangers, if he is an Emanator. In terms of Cyrene, I made a whole entire separate video about hers, and I'll leave the link to that in the description below. While that was made before Evernight was announced, I still can believe to a certain extent, especially since it was confirmed that March/Evernight is of a higher status in the remembrance than your average memo keepers, as she was the one commanding them around during 3.5. I think I'll have to make a separate video about that topic, because I've already made 4, might as well add another. And 4 is for being a planet completely cut off from the rest of the universe, surprisingly with a small detail about the origins of the Titans, which aren't even real in the Star Rail universe, gives us a lot of possible insight to the paths and their followers. I'm obviously taking this detail very literally, because outside of some readables, it's the only hint to paths that we haven't explored yet, and may not for years to come. And this is why this tiny detail that was thrown in the middle of a huge, massive lore bomb is so important to the world building in Honkai Star Rail, because it not only connects Amphorius to the rest of the Star Rail universe, but it also gives us the ever so slight peek at what we, the players, might be able to look forward to in the future. And that's my theory for today, but before you go, I have a bit of an announcement. I joined the stereotype of people in their mid-20s and 30s and made a podcast. That's right, me and a buddy of mine, Doggo EXP, started the Gain EXP podcast, a podcast where we talk about nerd culture, gaming, anime reviews, movies, and a glimpse into our personal lives. If you want to learn a bit more about me outside of these theories and reactions, check out the Gain EXP podcast. I'll leave a link in the description below. And check out Doggo EXP. If you're into Pokemon and Nintendo, he might just be up your alley. If you made it this far in this video, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like these types of theory and explanation videos, let me know by liking and subscribing, and leave your own thoughts and theories in the comments below. With all of that being said, peace.